Thank you for tuning into Literary Blend, a publishing podcast. I'm your host, Demi Michelle Schwartz. There's no perfect recipe for chasing a dream in the publishing industry, but I hope the conversations on this show give you the ingredients you need to bake yours into reality. So let's flip the page and get into this chapter of Literary Blend. Hi friends, welcome back to Literary Blend. Today's chapter is called Braiding, Plot, and Character. Joining me on the show for a chat surrounding this topic is someone who has played a massive role in my journey as an author so far. After I took one of her courses, I did a major revision of my manuscript and signed with my literary agent soon after. So she is a superstar, and now she's joining me on the show to share some of her knowledge with you. Please welcome Bethany Hensel.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited you're on the show. You are a fantastic human being, amazing editor, and just a ray of sunshine. So I'm so excited.
Back at you. I'm so nervous. This is my first podcast, as a guest. I have my own podcast, but this is my first as a guest, and already you're setting me at ease, girl. So I love it.
Perfect. Yes, this will be a very, very fun ride. So before we dive into our topic for this chapter of the show, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey in the publishing industry so far.
Yeah, sure. I have been a lover of stories all of my life. Before I even understood what stories actually were. You know what I mean? Like, I had a basket of toys that I would just dump on the floor. And I'm not kidding, hours would go by and I would just be playing with these toys, like creating journeys for them and building all of these worlds out for them. And I lost myself. I loved it. And then I became a huge reader. And from there, it kind of just segued into friends saying, hey, you like to read. Would you want to read my manuscript? And I'm like, sure. Yeah, that sounds fun. Why not? And then from there, word of mouth grew, and I was getting referrals from these friends saying, hey, you read for my friend, and she said, you did amazing. Can you read for me? And then it became like strangers asking me to read their stuff. So I got into storytelling just almost by birth, but I got into like the actual business of it just by a very happy accident almost, just because it snowballed. And I guess my enthusiasm for the art form of stories must have translated, because I've been doing it as a living ever since. For like 15 years now, I've been teaching, editing, book coaching. It's been amazing. And I get to meet excellent people like you.
Well, you are incredible, and I completely love the point that you said there about loving stories before you really understood what stories were. I feel like as authors and anybody creative, they kind of feel drawn to their art form in a special way as a child before they fully understand what exactly it is.
Right. And there's some stories that, like, when I was a kid, I don't know about you, Demi, but weren't there some movies that you could just watch over and over? There was something about the character or the plot. And again, we didn't have language for it when we were younger. Like, we didn't know, oh, this plot is amazing. Its three-act structure is on point. We just knew it was really, really fun. And I would just absorb these stories. I couldn't get enough of them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fantastic how you have created this path for yourself and saw others tell you as well, like, you are great at this. Like, you're great at editing and referring you to other people. I'm pretty sure that was really special for you too, because you always had a love for stories, but actually having others say that you have a strength to offer in that area must have been really incredible.
It was really nice because it was fun. Like, when I started doing it just as like this private little thing for friends, I just thought I was having a good time and helping out a friend. But over the course of the years, it's something that I just came back to over and over through shitty jobs, through really bad bosses, horrible experiences. I always came back to this creative element and the storytelling community because it's awesome. And when I was in a bunch of day jobs for forever. Like, I started working when I was 16. I'm in my 30s now, but it kind of all came to a head when I had a really crappy boss, and it was like do or die, now or never. And he fired me. Although, to be fair, I kind of mentally quit before he fired me. But it was one of those things I was like, I don't want to go back to an office. I don't want to have another boss that I have to ask to go to the bathroom with. What can I do? And instantly I thought, you know what? I've been doing this editing stuff so quietly. Maybe I really could make a go out of it. And that was years ago. And, it's worked out. But it was nice because at the start of it, it just felt fun when you find that niche, when you find something that really marries what you're passionate about to, your lifestyle, what you can do and your timing of things. It has a nice way of working out and feeling really good.
Yes, absolutely fabulous. So let's dive into our topic about braiding, plotting characters. So when I did your course, this was one of my favorite things you've touched on with your whole methodology with the compass and all of that. So can you share with everybody what exactly this methodology is and your perspective of viewing plot and character together rather than separate?
Okay, before that, I just have to say you were like one of my very first students. Your energy was so amazing. No, I'm serious. You were so open and receptive. You came in with the mind frame of, I'm excited to learn this and I'm just going to be open minded, open hearted, and see what this is. You asked so many good questions. It was like you were sharpening my blade of knowledge, if that makes sense, because I had this idea, I had this methodology, but questions from you really helped me hone it. And so I just want to say thank you to you.
Aw.
No, you're a smart, creative person. And man, you really asked me some good questions. So thank you, Demi.
Aw, you're welcome, and thank you as well.
Yeah, of course. But as for what it is, so we always hear, is it plot driven? Is it character driven? And from a very, like, I was going to say from a young age, but that's not the right word. From the beginning of my career, let's say as an editor, I always felt like they have to be both. For instance, you can have the greatest character on earth, but if you don't give them the obstacles, the challenges, the things that really light a fire under them, we never get to see the full breadth and depth of who that character is. And because we don't see that, we don't really get that fully deep. I could just watch you forever. I could just read your stories and journeys forever because you're so fascinating. And we think it's strictly because of their character personality, but the obstacles that that personality had to run up against really, I mean, that's where that magic happens, and vice versa. It's not just a plot. You could throw, for some reason, the only thing I can think of is John Wick right now. And you can throw a John Wick storyline, but if it's landing up against a dud, it's kind of like throwing a wet napkin at the wall. It's just not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything exciting. And it's just like, okay, there's a wet napkin on the wall. This isn't fun. You need a character or I mean, you need a plot where it pulls in that character. It's like in The Godfather 3, every time he tries to leave, they pull him back. Well, your actions in this story need to keep pulling at that character and revealing and deepening who that character is and what they stand for. And so, those two things really work in tandem with each other. And it creates so much more of a wholly immersive and entertaining story. To just have one without the other is like just having technique without passion. It's like trying to dance. It's like trying to dance some prima roll, and you don't have the point work. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's a great introduction to this because I really, really think that when I'm beginning to plot stories myself, I may have a concept, but as soon as I start getting into what I want to do, my brain automatically starts thinking of plot and character because the character ultimately is making the decisions, driving the plot. The plot's not driving the character. And also, the plot is affecting the character in other ways as well. And so, I really truly think it's kind of impossible to separate them because you can think about it this way too. If you take one character from one story and drop them in the story world of another book with a certain plot you have out or figured out for it, it probably won't work because they're so intertwined that that character is the fit for that story for whatever story you're trying to tell, and the obstacles affecting that character and who they are, their backstory, their trauma, all of those things play into it.
It's so true. You hit the nail on the head. You really listened during class. I'm just kidding. No, but you hit the nail on the head. I always use the example of the amazing Michael Corleone for my Godfather fans out there. You remember this, Demi. It's
Yeah.
like it's about the son of a mob boss who is trying to stay out of the family business, as we all remember for the people who've seen the movie. And if you haven't, you should. It's a pretty good movie. But he says a line to his girlfriend saying, "That's my family, that's not me." And he tries so hard to just keep out of it. But of course, the actions, the stuff of the plot pull him in, and he becomes like, the Don of the Corleone family. And that's Michael's storyline. That deals with so much of who he is, of his pain, of his desires, of everything. But you could also say, well, wait a second, Michael Corleone has a girlfriend in this book. What if it was like about just him and his girlfriend Kay? Because we know that there are tons of books about the son of a mob boss, and maybe he has to like convince his girlfriend who has no idea that he's like a good guy and it's okay to date him or something. Like we've seen those romances and those work. Those can be really fun. But is it Michael Corleone's storyline? Not really. It doesn't touch on who he is as a person, on his everything. And there's so much that goes into it. But you're absolutely right. It's a long way of me agreeing with you, Demi, that the character and the storyline really do have to work together. And when they work together, they will bring out the best and worst in both of those situations. And that's where a lot of chemistry happens. I say combustible elements. And we don't want that in real life, but in our fiction, oh, that's the thing that's like catnip. You know what I mean? My cat just jumped off my desk if you heard that little, that little.
Huh, that's perfect. So let's dive deeper into the compass specifically. So when I took your class, you explained this compass and how north, south, east, west kind of represented different things, and you're pulling the character in different directions and they're working against each other. So can you break down what each direction in this metaphorical compass represent and how that can play into this whole idea of plot and character working together?
Yes, I can do that. I want you to imagine if writing a story is like going out into the wilderness, like you have been parachuted into a wilderness. This writer's compass is going to keep you on track. It's going to get you back to the heart of what your story is. It's really going to streamline it. And if you think of a compass, you have your directions north, south, east, west. Focus on the horizontal line for a minute, that axis of west and east. I want you to imagine on that line is your character's beliefs and values. Like belief is west, values is east. They're on the same line, but you could say they're oppositional to each other, which we'll get to in a minute. But leave that there for a minute, that image. And on the vertical axis, you have N and S. Say north is like they're just their surface pain, like just the surface of who they are, of what they're going through, the things that tick them off, the stuff that the plates that are spinning. But that deep pain, that south point, is going to be something a little more visceral, primal. It's like a slumbering bear inside this character's heart, and they do their damnedest not to wake it up. They do not want this bear up and roaring and chasing them, down the street. So this slumbering bear is like their really deep pain. And when you have all four of these points working together, not only is it looking like a compass, but what else does this look like to me? At the very heart of it, it looks like a bullseye. It almost looks like a dartboard now. And when you can marry these things and weave these things together, the north, south, east, west, deep pain, surface pain, beliefs, and values, this is where your scene work can actually start feeling very specifically tied to the character themselves. So we always hear like, oh, I love this, but it kind of lagged for me here. Or, oh, it was a fun scene, but I'm just not sure if it did anything. Or it just felt like maybe your first 50 pages were great, but then you got lost in the wilderness in the second half of it. But you kind of know how to exit it in your third act. This will help you navigate that wilderness because these things need to play off each other, but also feed each other. It's like that eternal snake that kind of is always eating its own tail, sort of like that. but not to the extent where it's just like a cyclical thing. It's more pointed than that. And so you have these lines, you have that compass, and you can start weighing and seeing, like, are my scenes hitting on stuff? For instance, think of that compass: north, south, east, west. Surface, deep pain, north, south. West and east, beliefs and values. There's a lot to it, but it's also a very simplifying, clarifying way to get to not only the macro of your story, but the scene economics micro of it too. So, yeah, I'll quit talking because you know me. I can talk about this.
No, that's perfect. And what I love so much about this methodology is it can work nicely for plotters and pantsers because if you're a plotter like me, if I know the character's beliefs, values, their surface, and deep pain, when I'm plotting my story, I can strategically place scenes that contradict their values. So maybe they're in a situation where something is pushing against one of their beliefs, but their deep pain is being touched a little bit. Like you create the tension. And so as I'm plotting, I can kind of work that into the story. On the other hand, though, like for people who are pantsers, if you at least know a little bit about your character going into it, if you create a compass like on a piece of paper and list the beliefs, a list the values, list the surface and deep pain, then as you're plotting the story or as you're drafting rather, you have that in the back of your head. So while you're pantsing, you can work in scenes that tie in those different directions of the compass. So I love this because there are so many techniques out there that are very specific for plotters or pantsers, but this one can definitely go either way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is by design for sure, because you know me, and I know you think the same way, is there's no wrong or right way to be a writer. Whether you pants, plot, puzzle it out, whether you use, stone tablets or your or your typewriter, however you write, that's just how you're gonna write. And however you write one book might not be how you approach your second, third, and fourth. So, this method has a lot of respect for your own temperament, for your own psychology when it comes to you coming down to your story, sitting down and actually working on it. So, yes, it works extremely well for pantser and plotter, but it also works as a drafting tool and a revision tool. It's an incredible gut check because if all of your scenes, and I teach this in my membership, if all of your scenes are in one quadrant, just surface pain, where all it talks about is a certain value, that could be a sign that maybe you're not giving the right stuff, the right obstacles and villainy for your character to bounce off against. So then it explores and actually cracks into their deep pain. And so it's a great tool in that sense.
Yes, absolutely. So now what I would love to do is kind of break these down briefly to give everyone listening who may not completely understand the distinction between them and what we're trying to say, a better idea of what that is. So first with beliefs and values. So those two are kind of similar, but they are different. So for you, how would you define beliefs and values and maybe a couple examples to give listeners a good idea of what you're talking about?
Great question. So, a value, think of it as the capital letter stuff, a value in a person's life: God, family, money, health. It's those big things that they're just like, yes, this is a value. I value my family, capital F. If I had to, if they did one thing, if they jumped off a bridge, I'd jump off with them or so, you know what I mean? Something like that. That's your big capital letter value. You would, you know, do anything for them. A belief is more tangible, I guess you could say. It's usually in a pattern of, I believe this because of that. Like there's that because of that, this is true. This is like almost like a law to them, like a mental law. They just believe that it's true. If you are good, good things will happen. If you show up every day for work, you'll get promoted. It's just that belief, that kind of invisible tablet of commandments they have in their head. And so to marry those things together, if a belief is, if you are good, good things will happen, and a value is capital F family, what happens when someone in your family, like say a sister, is raising her younger brother? It's just them. Her value is him. That is like her only family left. But she also believes if you're good, good things happen. Or good things only happen to people who are good. Maybe that's just a like a, long held sort of toxic belief. But let's say her brother does something not very good. Let's say he robs a bank. And now her value and her beliefs are contrasting with each other. How does she maintain this belief of goodness, quote unquote, when her brother has gotten into a lot of now bad trouble? And so that's where we're starting to work out. And to your point, you said it specifically and strategically work out now, how can we make these things battle against each other even more? How can we deepen this even more? And now we're drilling down into deep pain. Now this is where real change and transformation happens. So that's an example of how belief and value can really work well together by
Right.
not working well at all. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And again, tension. What this is creating is tension. And I think that's so, so, so important to remember that every scene needs to serve a purpose. And more scenes are obviously more tense than others, but the reader needs a reason to keep reading. And if their beliefs and values, the characters are at war with each other in a way, then the reader's going to be curious. So how are they going to act if this they believe this, but their value is this? What are they going to choose? So I think that's a really, really big part of why this plays into tension and keeps reader engagement as well. So now surface and deep pain, which truly, this changed my life, literally, like how I think about everything with my characters. So can you give a few examples of what the surface pain could look like and a deep pain paired with that?
Okay, so I always use the example of my friend, and God bless her, she has given me full permission to use this. So I wouldn't tell it otherwise. But one day we were talking, and she was very upset. She was just a raw nerve of energy. I said, "What's wrong, girl?" And she's like, "I went to a pedicure to get a pedicure, and I guess they didn't clean the water or they didn't clean the tools. Something happened, and it gave her like a toenail infection. Like it wasn't anything big, you know what I mean? But she was very upset by this. And I said, "Oh yeah, that really stinks." And she was just saying how like it was summertime, she bought all these new sandals, and she was very genuinely angry. But Demi, it didn't take long to scratch the surface of what was really going on because she was just so upset. I said, "It's okay. Those sandals aren't going anywhere. No one's going to eat them. You'll have them. You know, it'll be all right." But here's the key is that with this, her sandals were not just sandals. It was like getting this bad experience at the pedicure place, getting this toenail infection. It tapped into a really, really big slumbering bear, which is I don't feel feminine anymore. Like, I love wearing my pretty shoes, which complement my pretty outfits. And this is like my femininity. And I'm single. And what if I can never wear pretty shoes and pretty outfits again? And I will just be single and alone forever. That was the real pain that she was going through. That was her real anxiety and worry is that what if this doesn't go away? And all of her kind of identity was tied up in this ability to not wear her nice shoes, to not feel like herself. You know what I mean? It went beyond the shoes, it went beyond the clothes. It really tapped into this deep pain that I don't even know if she ever really confronted before of like, wow, my whole entire identity as a person is now in jeopardy to her. That's what it felt like. And when we started talking about that, it really opened the floodgates for some big, big stuff. Which, I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, you want to wear your nice shoes. You want to you want to feel good about your feet. But I mean, it really, really like a chasm of stuff poured out. And if that's kind of what you want to do to your character. You want to tap into that, get all that good stuff. I'm not saying that my friend's suffering is, you know what I mean? There was stuff you could work with. And then that's where all of a sudden ideas can start lighting up. Parts of your imagination can start working that maybe they were not lighting up before. So getting into that deep pain is really where some magic can happen.
Yeah. No, I love this. And a big point I want to make too is that you just shared a real life example, and that just drives home the point that even though the characters we're creating are fictional, they should seem like real people. And real people have these experiences. They are suffering from some kind of trauma or belief about themselves, some kind of experience, and they're trying to hide that, but certain things are triggering for that, and they try to mask it as something else. And so I think this is a really great example to show this is a real life thing. And so we need to treat our characters like real people and give them real experiences like this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And just as a quick like little addendum to this, one of the students in our when I was teaching this, she sent me a little comic book strip afterward, and she said, "Oh my god, I totally get surface and deep pain now." Like the light bulb went off for her, and I forget if it was a Calvin and Hobbes or a Peanuts comic strip, but it was one character saying, "I'm going to climb this mountain today," and another character said, "Why?" And the first character said, "I just want to, I just want to have fun and do it." And then the next panel was the same character saying, "Plus, I want to prove to my father that I can." And I was like, yeah, there you
Aww.
go. That's actually a really great example of surface and deep pain. Of course, the character just wants to do it, but scratch that surface.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is something that I truly love from your class. So every single time I'm plotting a new story, this is like number one of the top things I think about. And I actually just started a new one. It's a thriller, and basically the surface kind of pain trauma is my protagonist has a terrible fear of heights, but you find out the reason why is because there was this whole thing in the backstory where she had a confrontation with another character on a cliff, pushed her, she fell, and she basically committed a murder and then covered it up. So her fear of heights comes from, oh my God, I killed somebody. And every time she is high up on a certain place, like that comes back to her. And then that's also battling with her beliefs and values because murder isn't good. She doesn't believe murder is good. She believes like telling the truth and coming forward is good. So when you look at this whole compass of all these things at work and pulling against each other, you're going to create a massive turmoil in your character.
And turmoil is great. Again, not in real life. We want peaceful, joyful real life, but in our entertainment, come on now. We want there to be some sense of danger, some sense of something, to take it back to just story, caveman days, around sitting around a campfire, we're just telling our tales. But the minute it gets boring, we're going to be hit over the head and dragged away back to the cave. You know what I mean? So we just want to entertain. And how do you break that down? It's usually not a recitation of, this is what I did today, this is what I ate today, and then I went to bed. I also say, think of it like this. And whether you believe in heaven or not, I'm just using this as an example. But say you're on your cloud with your little halo on your head, and another little angel pops up next to you, and they're like, "What you doing?" You start talking, and all of a sudden you say to this little cherub, "You want to hear a story?" And they're like, "Sure." You are going to pick a very specific time, like if you want to, like a story about your life. You're going to pick a very specific time in the yardstick measurement of your life. And that time is usually going to be something where it was out of your comfort zone, where it was when the worst was happening, and then the best, where it was that point where the most growth, challenge, turmoil, happiness were all mingled together. You chose that point. So, the life has ended. You're looking back at the whole yardstick. You're not generally going to tell a story about just that random day where you watched, like, I'm going to use this example. You binge watched The Rookie because it was really good because I was watching that show. You're going to pick something a little more active, a little more challenging, because you're also trying to connect with that person you're telling the story to. I mean, why are you telling it to begin with? Because you want to share it. It was exciting to you, or it was meaningful to you, and you're sharing that as a storyteller.
Right. Absolutely. So much incredible information. What a wonderful conversation about all of these things. So, just to hit on the final points, just to wrap up, plot and character, braid them together. They're so intertwined. The compass, when you're thinking about your story, plotting, drafting, revising, think about the beliefs and the values of the character, their surface, deep pain, and find ways of making those work against each other and create conflict and tension in your story to keep readers on the edge of their seat and to create a very realistic, well-rounded character. So there we have it. That's our chat on braiding, plot, and character. It was lovely having you, Bethany, but now we've made it to the plot twist, which is one of my favorite parts of the show, where I'm going to hit you with a question that you never saw coming.
Okay. All right. I think I'm ready. Hit me.
All right. So I know you love cats.
Mm.
And I know you love books. So what I'm going to do is give you 2 genres, and I want you to pair them with a cat breed you feel best represents the genre.
Okay. I can do this. All right. Go for it. I love this.
All right. So your 2 genres are romance and thriller.
You know, I immediately 2 breeds came to mind. I'm not even kidding. So, I'm gonna cheat a little bit and say these 2 breeds. One is gonna be the black cat because here's the thing: is black cats are so active. I was gonna say they're not aggressive, but they're just very like they're active. They're just really silly, kooky little cats, and it's a thrill ride every day to see what kind of trouble they're going to get into. But they're also like, they're just so beautiful. They're nighttime sky, they're midnight. They have these hypnotic emerald eyes, and there's a stillness to them in all that activity. And so I feel like in a genre of like a romantic thriller, you want that kind of that atmosphere, that dark, smoky atmosphere, like a dark, smoky coat on a black cat. And you want that thriller where you don't know what's going to happen next. And black cats, you don't know what's going to happen next. I know I had 2 of them and they passed away, and I have 2 more now. So 4 altogether, but currently only 2. And so a black cat, I feel like, could really represent the genre of romantic thriller. You're getting both. But in a weird way, I also feel like a Himalayan cat could work. I know when you think Himalayan, you think lap cat, really lazy. But Himalayan cats are the coziest, like cuddliest. I could just lay my head against a Himalayan cat and just feel so like, ah. And as for the thriller, yeah, for the most part, they are mellow. But when they're not mellow, it is absolutely heart pounding as to why. Like trying to figure out, oh my God, what did you see? What did you hear? Like it is disconcerting when a Himalayan is suddenly bouncing off the walls. And it's just like, oh my goodness. So where are we? What are we doing? I know that was a really in-depth answer to that question.
Perfect. I was hoping I'd get an answer like that because I was like, okay, I need to come up with a good one for Bethany and cat related. Okay, here we go.
Oh no, that's perfect. Like it's a weird thing I could probably TED Talk on for 30 minutes. Like we could talk about it all day.
Awesome. Well, it was lovely having you. And before we wrap up, I would love for you to share with the listeners where they can connect with you and check out all of the incredible services that you offer for others.
Definitely. My website is theempoweredwriter.com because that is my motto. We want to be empowered writer, and I want to empower everyone with the tools to write their best stories and create the writing life of their dreams. So, the empowered writer. It's a noun, it's a verb. Check it out.
Yes, definitely do.
Yeah, the Instagram is the same, the empowered writer, trying to keep it simple. And my membership is called Achieve Membership. And that is where you have the Writer's Compass. It's actually just a bonus in there. So you get a lot of content plus that compass. So we have the Empowered Writer, the Achieve Membership, and of course my podcast, which you have to come on, girl. Speaking of achievement, I mean, I'm talking to super achiever over here. Like, man, you are just knocking them off your list.
Fabulous. Well, it was a joy having you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Demi. This was so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a wrap on this chapter of Literary Blend with Bethany, all about braiding, plot, and character. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider leaving Literary Blend a review and giving it 5 stars to help other authors just like you discover it. Also, if you have friends in the publishing industry you feel would be interested in the show, please pass it along to them as well. Of course, until we flip to the next chapter, happy reading and writing.